G'day guys, Lindemann here in a new game for me. So there's a Steam sale, so I picked up Rise of Flight with a couple of DLC packs. So having a look at this simulator, it's kind of a more simplified simulator than say DCS, which I'm more used to. But it's lots of fun. It's obviously it's World War One, so a little bit different in that way, and you can get lots of good action in the simulator. It's a little bit old now, made by 777. So hopefully they won't abandon it completely and stop all development, but there's enough out there in terms of content to keep you interested for quite a while. I picked it up for about 60% off, so a pretty cheap deal, really. I'm in the Sopwith Camel right now, just doing some dog fighting with some German, I think it's the Albatross, I take on at some point, and some other aircraft. I've got kind of default settings on right now, and having a look at sort of what I want to turn off as I get a little bit better at the simulator. I'm definitely noticing that the control system is really flaky. I mean, you can see the wing come off there as I basically just turn and burn that guy. But the control system with my rudder and pedals and everything, I'm just getting used to how flaky everything is. It's kind of like flying a kite and trying to dogfight. So, especially the Sopwith Camel, this thing is designed to be a pretty unstable dogfighter, and it's pretty easy to actually kill yourself as opposed to have the enemy kill you. So, about half the time if I die, it's because I overdid it on the turn. You can sort of see that there where it's starting to think about going into a spin, and it's a pretty solid cutoff. You can see there I'm losing control, and that you have control, and then all of a sudden you've departed controlled flight. So just need to be really careful with the Sopwith Camel. But that said, it is very manoeuvrable. You can get the nose around and get rounds onto the enemy. So really all I'm doing is kind of taking in how the simulator works. There's no advanced systems that I have on anyway. There's no clickable cockpit. You can see I'm in a right hand spin there, and having to correct that should really give that guy a bit of an advantage. I think he can come around for a head on pass, but doesn't get any shots off. Yeah, so there's no clickable cockpit or anything like that, but you have a lot of control over the engine. Unfortunately, I'm just really using the default settings, so a lot of that stuff is handled automatically. I've also got labels on so I can see where everybody is, although I've turned off navigation labels because I don't really need that, and I hope to turn it to a much more realistic setting. You can see the guy starting to smoke now as I've put rounds through his plane, and you can see I'm really struggling to get a controlled bead on him with leading shots to get a sustained burst of machine gun fire onto his plane. Doing a little bit better there maybe, and it's also just off to the right, a little bit tricky to just sort of get the nose, get the rounds exactly where I want, and also know how much I should be leading the target at this point. It's just a matter of experience. But that guy didn't last too long once his wing got worked off. This is a different scenario, another one-on-one dogfight, but this time I've put the weather to bad, so you can see some of the effects here that DCS is apparently going to get, which is things like the water, raindrop effects, things like that. There's an open air canopy, so I imagine it'd be pretty rough to fly in all weather. I'm not sure if they actually did. But you'd probably freeze to death pretty quick if you went up too high in too cold a weather. There's lots of seasons. There's a huge map. A lot of it seems to be pretty consistent, or sometimes low detail, but it's a very pretty game. Pretty much what you need. The trench lines look awesome, particularly as it moves, as you load different times. So depending where the trench line was, I noticed that it would load a different map with different seasons, different features, different front line location, things like that. And I think it also has a dynamic campaign that kind of follows you around. It seems to be. I'm not entirely sure of that, but it's you create your pilot. You create it at a certain time in the Great War, and you join a squadron and you do missions, and it simulates the AI going on missions. So it looks like it should be fairly dynamic there. So just getting a few rounds on this target, but also try not to overdo it too much on the aerodynamics side of things. The Sopwith Camel is pretty well known for being a difficult plane to fly, and you can see his plane has now had too much and it's disintegrated. I tend to get down low because I take quite a long time to get enough rounds into a target before he actually falls apart. So here's another shot. This time I think we're into winter. You can see I got a bead on this guy with the sustained burst, going for that turn, diving down, and his plane breaks apart from that round. But unfortunately his wing flies into my plane, and this is a good example of the nasty left-hand spin that the Sopwith Camel can get itself into. Not really my fault. He just smashed my plane up. And what you need to do is you need to rock the elevators to try and get airflow over your wings before you pull out of the dive. There's some nice effects. I mean, you saw the oil there. The propeller's gone, so there's not much I can do apart from just put the plane on the ground. Landing's an interesting experience as well. You can pretty much land anywhere actually, but you don't have any real steering or brakes, so you just kind of roll somewhere and try and avoid a big nasty hill that'll pitch you over. So that's the Sopwith Camel. It's an interesting airplane. I can imagine a lot of people not using it because it's quite lethal. So having a quick look at a different plane here. This is one I tried next, and I've probably done the most flying in. This is the SE5A, I believe, another English plane. Just sorting up my track IR there slightly. The thing I don't like about this plane is that gun sight. You have to mount the, I think it's ADIS, and it's a collimated, I think, a sight, basically like a hollow point lens, which is quite good, but I don't like the way it's got sort of one Vickers off to the left, and then the wing-mounted sort of drum-fed machine gun on top, which you have to constantly reload, which takes a few seconds. As he takes that magazine off, you kind of hinge the weapon down. So that's probably my only complaint. I'm not a huge fan of the weapons on this aircraft. It's also really not a turner. So this is an energy fighter, and you can see as I come around, these Germans are really able to turn inside me. So I am turning, but also trying to keep the energy advantage, trying to get some separation and keep the initiative. So he's diving down, and if I follow him into a turn too much, you'll notice that he can really out-turn me. Of course, I can't always boom and zoom. I have to get into a bit of a fur ball with them. Otherwise, I'm never going to shoot anyone down. Especially with my gunnery skills, you can see I'm struggling. That was probably not leading enough, and the bullets went behind him. And I can keep turning, but I'm probably going to get myself into more trouble. So the good thing about this aircraft is that you can use the power and speed and climb away. You can see that guy gets a glancing shot towards me, but I think he missed. But I can power away, so I can climb up, I can out-climb them, and if I need to disengage, I can run away, whereas they can out-turn me, but if they run out of bullets or get low on fuel, they can never really run away from me, because I could chase them down. So it's definitely the better choice to go for the energy fighter. I think that sort of thing was where aviation went towards the middle or the end of the war. They realised that pure manoeuvrability wasn't really going to do it like they thought. So all I'm doing here is keeping my altitude and my energy high, and not really doing a sustained engagement on a single target. I'm just turning, booming down on them to get an intercept course, letting them walk through my rounds. You can see he's starting to smoke, and then doing the zoom. So the zoom climb, getting the energy up, bringing it back. If anyone gets into a position where they're trying to chase me down or shoot at me, basically just disengaging and extending before coming back. So winning the energy war is really the only way that you're going to engage a more maneuverable target, and that means out-climbing them. That means keeping your aircraft in a position where they can't get your nose up to get rounds on you. So just trying to help out my friend there. I think he's being shot at by that German, so I just send some bullets his way. And I've made a few changes to the control system, so I've lessened the curve. I've given it a bit of a non-linear curve on the rudder pedals, try and make them a little bit more usable. And I've also bound things like clearing a jam, because the weapons jam a lot. The machine guns are pretty vintage, and you'll have to cycle the action quite a bit to get jams cleared. So I've bound that to my joystick, because it's something that you really need to do very quickly. I've also bound zoom in and zoom out, just to see what's around me, which isn't too important. Because I've got labels on, I can kind of cheat a little bit at this point around where the enemy is, and keep that situational awareness, which is pretty valuable. So you can see he had a few rounds shot at me, and I intercepted him, and he's got some black smoke coming out of his aircraft now. So not following him into the turn, you can kind of see that I'm trying to stay above him, and he's going to struggle to come up to engage me with his engine now damaged. So turning into the threat is a very important tactic as well. So just keeping directly on top of him, he can never get his nose high enough to really engage me, and I can do swooping attacks. So those dives where I cut the corner means that I can keep hitting him without him being able to really get his nose around and onto me, even though he's more maneuverable. So just using the energy advantage. You can see I reloaded the drum barrel there, went in for an intercept dive. He turned, so my intercept failed. And I do something which is a little bit silly here. This is, well, you know, you've got to commit at some point. So I entered the turn battle, was never going to win it, and he came around. I thought I'm alright. No, he's turned a very sharp corner, and he is right on my tail. So at this point, he definitely has the advantage, and he gets a hit on me. And at this point, I need to use my plane's abilities to get away from him, which means extending out, and he can't chase me. And it becomes a bit of an energy war. You can see I've got some smoke coming out of my plane. That might just be the exhaust, or it could also be that he's actually hit my engine, but probably not too badly. So really the strength of this plane, the SE5, is that it's a bit of an energy fighter. It's very easy to fly. I mean, you can get this thing right up to stall speed, and it's very controllable, as opposed to the Sopwith Camel, where you yank it slightly too hard and you're in an unrecoverable spin. So this seems like a more difficult aircraft to fight in. Like, your gunnery skills need to be a lot better, but a much easier aircraft to fly. So you can see I'm in a climbing turn, keeping just above and away from him, and he has not been able to match my climb. So he's disengaged, he's probably going to stall, and I can now swoop on him, do another intercept engagement. Boom, zoom, I actually enter the turn to come around, but I don't, doesn't look like I follow him. And yeah, this is where it can kind of seem like a bit of a stalemate as well. So if I can't get the shots on him, because as I come down to boom him, he does a sharp turn, which means my intercept fails, and then he comes around to get behind me, and I use my energy to escape him. It's a real stalemate, and you know, the fight will never really, no one's going to get the advantage. I could disengage, but he'd have more trouble doing that unless he jumped into a cloud or used some other method of getting away. So we kind of rinse and repeat. I'm booming and zooming, and then he's dodging and trying to counterattack, and neither of us are really getting too far. So I had a telephone call there, so I just cut out the pause. So still coming around and rinsing and repeating a little bit. So you can see this is autumn, I believe, 1918, I believe. It's a pretty good looking map. Lots of different colour schemes and lighting, looking pretty good, I suppose. You can see I'm really getting the energy advantage here, keeping nice and close to him, so he'd have to put the nose right up into a stall to even get close to hitting me. And as he disengages or loses the fight, I can dive on him as I choose. Just blacking out a little bit there with the speed, and yeah, you can see having a couple of intercept shots, eventually his wings just give out and it's game over. Careful this time not to eat one of his wings, and you can see a nice fireball effect as he is sent to buy the farm. So that's Rise of Flight. Let me know what you think. It's pretty fun, super cheap right now on Steam. Otherwise it is free to play to get a couple of aircraft.